What is going on? Welcome back to another video, another episode of the Ultra Marathon Prep. So in today's video is going to be a two-part series. The first part of the video, I'm going to be covering exactly what I've been doing to make sure I'm staying healthy, because this mileage is climbing up, and if I'm not on top of all this mobility routines that I'm doing, it's going to definitely lead to me pulling out of this race. So the first part is going to be covering all the movements that I've been doing to keep me as healthy as possible, and the second part is going to be covering the 20-mile run that we have going on tomorrow. So typically what I like to do on Fridays are mainly for days for like mobility, just to make sure I get my stretch in, I make sure my body's right, because Saturdays are typically my longer runs. So jumping straight into mobility, just like a house support foundation is meant to crumble, the same thing goes for your body. So start from the feet. Typically by Friday my calves are tight, so I just get into a nice little stretch right here, just stretch my calves out, just rock back and forth. And if I find like a sticky point, then I might just like camp out there and trying to get a better, deeper stretch. And from there on out, we're going to switch back into our tibia raises. It is something I highly recommend for you. And again, tibia raises kind of just make sure we have more strength in our knees. And if you have shin splints, they can definitely be very helpful. So I typically do about 3 sets, 12 to 15 repetitions on this one. The point of this movement on Fridays is not necessarily to make myself sore. It's just to, improve blood flow circulations, find sticky points, and I address that before we jump into the next movement. So quick history on some of my injuries that I sustained in the past. I had lower back injuries, QL, ITB injuries. When I was training for my last marathon, the Chicago Marathon, I had to call it quits halfway through just because my ITB started to flare up, and I was not able to finish that. But I was able to come back again the second time around because I learned my lesson, and I put some structures and training in place to prevent that, or to prevent me from actually pausing that race, and we actually able to conclude or finish the Chicago half marathon. I learned my lesson, and I realized most of my issues, and some of you guys that might have like knee problems, most of my issues typically starts from the hip. Quite a happy hip is a happy knee. So if I take care of my hips, my knee typically feels fine. So the biggest lesson here is, oftentimes if you're struggling or find yourself like having any sort of like knee pains, that's typically a symptom of something else. So I know my knee pain is typically because my hips are not moving, or there's an internal rotation, lack of internal rotation or external rotation in my hip. So I make sure I work on that, improving and strengthening it. So one of the movements that I do is the couch stretch. This is a non-negotiable for me every day. And it's just easily just get into the couch stretch in the first position and just stretch out your hips. I like the couch stretch just because, again, one of my biggest issues is from running is a lot of tight TFLs, tight hip flexor. So stretching in this couch position allows me to elongate my TFL to not make him so tight, because the tighter the TFL, it kind of just transcends down and starts pulling on your IT band, and that typically will cause a lot of ITB issues. And the cue that you want to think of when you do movements like this is internal rotation of the hips, and just slide forward, and just that internal rotation of the hips alone, you should feel a good stretch. Camp out here. If I feel a little more tightness, I lean back a little bit, just rock. One of the biggest key here also is you want to make sure you are breathing. So another movement that I've been doing that I was not doing before that potentially caused a lot of knee pain is working on my glute med. Oftentimes what typically causes most pain and most injury are the tiniest little things that you're not really focusing on. So squatting, deadlifting, yes, it involves a lot of your glute max, but your glute med, which is the tiniest muscle, actually plays a significant role when it comes to posterior stability. And me having a weak glute med definitely led to a lot of my ITB syndrome, a lot of ITB issues that I had in the past. So making sure I focus on strengthening my glute med is very, very crucial and important to make sure I'm staying injury free. So one of my movements that I love to do, just a nice little stagger here. Whoa, nice little stagger here, slight little bend, and just a kick back. I like to do about 3 sets. 3 sets, 15 to 20 repetitions on this. I do this literally every day. Again, the conversation that you have to think about is, when you have a weak muscle group and you've been training for years, you're not expecting them to get stronger overnight. It's something you have to repeat the frequency over and over again. And it's not something that's gonna lead to me getting sore, that's gonna impede me from, getting through my other training sessions per week. And that's one of the beauties of the glute med, just because it's so small, it needs to be strengthened. but the frequency is not going to impact you where you feel like, man, I cannot squat today or do legs today because my glute med is sore. It's more of a glute max that's typically sore because it's the bigger muscle group, and that might take away from your training session. So jumping into the mistake that I used to make a while back that I'm not making anymore, that's definitely played a significant role into me staying healthy. I've been guilty of this. If you have a tight muscle, you stretch it, but you're missing a huge component that's needed outside of just stretching. You just don't want to stretch the muscle, you want to strengthen them also. Yes, the couch stretch is great for your TFL, your hip flexor, but what are you doing to make sure you are strengthening them? So one of the movements I've been enjoying doing is called the loaded hover, and what that looks like is grab a kettlebell. It doesn't have to be super heavy. You grab that, brace yourself, trying to be as straight line as possible. You lift the kettlebell up, hover, slightly tap, come back down. Slightly tap, come back down. So what you're doing is you loading your hip flexor in this position, and you're just not stretching it. So I usually about 2 sets of this, 10 to 12 repetitions. And the way you can progress on this is obviously by adding more repetitions. The stronger you get, or you just add more sets to it. And there are 2 variations also that you can definitely use. You don't have access to kettlebells, you can have this to a band. I'm sure a lot of you guys can do this at home. Just a band, again, brace yourself. Pull up, down, pull up, and down, pull up, and down, pull up, and down. So 2 sets, 10 to 12 repetitions. And the last variation of the loaded hover that I like, that I really enjoy, because it allows you to lengthen or train your hip flexor in the lengthened position too. You find a bench, you can do this on the bench. You find a bench, get a nice little lean, you pull your legs up to your chest. Immediately you should definitely feel the load on your feet, pulling or stretching your hip flexor. Embrace yourself, and you want to climb up. Try to make sure you keep your hips nice and quiet. Three sets, 10 to 12 repetitions. But again, something you want to start low and see how well you adapt. And so the last major piece that I not cover is obviously soft tissue work, meaning foam rolling. So I foam roll my IT band. Yes, I still foam roll my IT band because it allows me to kind of just not neglect the IT band and kind of parry over into my outer quad. Because again, if that's not loose or it's super tight, it can definitely lead to actually you feeling some sort of knee pain. So soft tissue work is very important. So foam roll, I get to that. It's a daily process for me. So all this movement is something I actually do on a daily basis, not just on the day before I run, because the frequency that I do them, my shorter distance run are not that short anymore. I'm running average about 7 to 6 miles each day anytime I run. And my longer runs this weekend, for instance, is going to be 20 miles. So those are the things that I'm doing to keep me healthy as we prep for this ultra marathon 50 miler. I'm going to finish that, and I'm going to see you tomorrow morning for a big, massive 20-mile run. What is going on? So we are back. It is the next morning here. It is 5:56 in the morning. About to knock out this 20-mile run. So 2 of the biggest tools that I use in the morning right before all my runs are, 1, obviously the massage gun, just to break down any soft tissue work, just to increase blood flow, and the band just to work on my glute med, because again, like I mentioned in previous clips, glute med is one of the things that was the weakest, and that's something I do on a daily basis, especially put a lot of emphasis on that before any run, not just any big run. By this time, 2 sets, my glutes is already on fire. All right, so now that I'll finish all the pre-run work, again, just in case you're finding this video for the first time, I like to cover the gels that I use for my runs, and the first gel is always going to be the more than 100 calf, again, because this got 100 milligrams of caffeine. This is the first thing I take in the first 3 miles of the run. After the first 3 miles of the run, get that going, then we are going to be subbing with the good faithful humid gel because it's got some electrolytes in it. So the protocol for the gel is 1 gel every 3 hours or so. I have enough to last me, or I can always loop around to grab more in the car if I need it. And yeah, I'm gonna do number 2 and get after this 20-mile run, and I'll see you after or during the run.
Reckless talk.
What's going on? So I like to make it known that I do stop in between runs, and so because we got 20 miles to run today, so some of the things I typically do, especially on this long runs, because it's not a speed workout, it's just time on the feet, is if I'm feeling like a slight little pain or a slight little tightness, I do stop from time to time to get, you know, some sort of like stretch or static stretching, just to release any sort of tightness in any sort of areas before it leads to any a bigger problem during the run. So I like to make it known when I do longer runs, I do stop, unless if it's like a marathon pace where it's like speed work, like we need to maintain a certain pace. But in this case, because we're training for ultra marathon, essentially just want to work on time on the feet. And I've been distracted over there by a couple of geese, however you want to call it. So again, stretch. I know, like right now, my hips, again, which is typically the main problem that I normally have, it's getting a little bit tight. So I just like to get some static stretch in there, open that up a little bit, and also like to adjust my gait. Which is another pro tip: if you're trying to get better at running, try not to focus too much on your mile time, because what you're looking for is really just time on the feet. And that time on the feet are slowing down your runs, keep you in that zone 2, and that's how you build your aerobic fitness. So I know it's sometimes very easy for you to get caught up on social media when you see a lot who just like sprinting and running, because running has become something fun and cool, which I appreciate. But don't get caught up in that by comparing yourself to other people and like, yes, I just want to go fast. For you to go fast, you gotta go slow. I know it sounds dumb, but that's what you have to do. Back to running. Right, so we just finished a 20-mile run. We finished in 3 hours and 8 minutes and 16 seconds at the pace of 9:25, making currently the total mile for the week is 32 miles. We did not do 2 running sessions this week. We skipped that, and we, instead of running, we did bike instead of that. Man, tired. Like I said, I walked a little bit, so I'm not really too particularly concerned about the pace, which is 9:25 pace. I just mileage on the feet because, again, we're training for ultra marathon. We're not training for a speed workout. We're not training to hit a certain mile time. We just want to make sure we are physically ready to finish the 50 miler. So I don't really have that much time to rest, because we're going to wake up tomorrow morning and we have another 10 miles to do. So today is going to be literally everything I've covered in this video. I'm going to be repeating the same thing today in the stretch, mobility, soft tissue work, just to make sure I'm ready, recovered enough. By the time you've seen this video, I should already have posted another video talking about some of the recovery modalities that I use to get myself ready for each run. So if you haven't seen that, make sure you check that video out. So I'll finish the run, go home, shower, eat, recover, and come back here and do it again. Practice. Not just practice alone. Keep showing up for myself. Show up for yourself. You fail. You're not going to achieve everything that you want to achieve the first time around, but that doesn't mean you should quit. Keep showing up, keep trying, keep hammering at it. Before you know it, you find yourself on top. 7.7 Be Fit, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
But I got expensive habits. Don't step in soul. I'm a real one. Check my